What's going on? It's Dapper Don, and I'm excited to welcome you all back. I've been gone for a while, but that time was spent learning, growing, and improving on my craft and honing my skill set. Now I'm ready to tackle consistent podcasting once again. In honor of my renewed commitment, I've decided to revamp my show entirely. So welcome to What's Going On with your incorrigible host, Dapper Don. This is still going to be a show where I talk about whatever the hell I want, but I'm not worried about filtering this for a radio audience. I'm happy keeping this a YouTube only show. So we'll be able to have a little more fun. If that sounds like your jam, be sure to like, subscribe, and share so we can get more episodes out there. Anywho, let's get on to today's topics. We're going to be talking about pickup artists and their attempts to control the female mind. And then we'll segue into talking about the best way I've learned to choose friends. And then we'll end off with me telling the story of a brief point in 2023 when I was involved in a polyamorous relationship. Yes, it's going to be a real interesting one tonight. But before we get into any of that, I want to bring back a segment I had in the previous version of this podcast and read a little bit of news to start things off. And this segment we'll call What's New? I'm going to read my news, you're going to get my reactions and thoughts, and then we're going to go from there. So let's start with our first article from ABC News. Trump testing limits of presidential power, but experts say his flex might not stick. By Ivan Pereira, Pereira, posted January 25th, 2025, 5:49 a.m. Only a week into President Donald Trump's second term, and he has already tested the limits of his executive power, a strategy to implement, with blazing speed, a controversial and bold conservative agenda, from ending birthright citizenship to ending federal diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Which basically means that there's going to be no framework for minorities to get the treatment that they need to be equal within the workplace, essentially. He basically says that everybody gets treated the same as a justification for this sort of thing, but that's not how that works. But anywho, back to the article. He also issued pardons and clemencies for over 1,500 people involved with the January 6th attack on the Capitol, including ones convicted of violently attacking police officers, because they were his supporters, of course. Legal experts and historians tell ABC News that the sheer number of these executive orders is unprecedented based on past presidents' actions, but whether they will stick is far from guaranteed. In fact, Trump's agenda hits its first snag after a federal judge issued a temporary injunction on his executive order over birthright citizenship Thursday. So, for those who are unfamiliar with that term, a temporary injunction, I'm going to pull it up right now, is a court order that prevents a party from taking a specific action until a trial or other court decision is made. It's also called a preliminary injunction. The purpose of it is usually to maintain the status quo and to prevent irreparable damage or change. Essentially, Trump, when he hit office, had a bunch of things he just rapid fire started trying to sign into order, a bunch of executive actions, and essentially the court system and the judicial system in general just like, oh, ho, 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 now. You got a little too much dip on your chip. You got a little too much dip on your chip. What you doing, man? Birthright citizenship is gone now? So people born in America aren't Americans? Whoa, whoa, now. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? You're about to destroy half the country. Back to the article. Executive orders do not have the same legal status or legal quality as laws enacted by Congress. Some are more just mere wishes that a president would like to see, and some are pursuant to law and can only be stopped by a judicial review. Stephen Griffin, a professor of constitutional law at Tulane Law School, told ABC News. Griffin and other legal experts said it is likely that some of the other decrees will not stand up to the airtight laws grounded in the Constitution. However, given the Republican-controlled Congress, the battles of these orders could be long drawn out and accomplish what they say Trump is really seeking with his rapid-fire decrees, sending a stark message to the nation. It's going to take a few weeks to see whether the orders have the force of law or more of those are just signals, Griffin said. Griffin said traditionally, presidents have been more cautious about issuing many executive actions this early into their administration, given the likely legal challenges that they face, even if the order is just done for face value. The use of executive orders at the beginning of an administration goes as far back as President Ronald Reagan. It really ramped up starting with the George W. Bush administration and hasn't stopped, he explained. So essentially, this is a power play. Trump got elected, and the first thing he wanted to do was exert his power. This is a power play. He's watched people like Kim Jong Un seize absolute power. He's watched people like Putin seize absolute power. And he's trying to create an environment where he can do the same. I even heard some sources say that he was trying to abolish the law that presidents could not run for more than 2 consecutive terms. So he's really trying to create a situation where he's president forever and where he has this unlimited amount of power. And a lot of his supporters will say, oh, well, that stuff was just liberal stuff, anyways. Oh, what scared, cowardly little liberals. And while I'm not specifically liberal myself, I'll say this. These are kind of red flags. And, I will say that I've heard many convincing arguments for why Kamala didn't get elected over Trump. I've heard many things about her hypocrisy and things of that nature. I've heard many things about how she's not been the best person. But I think a lot of what it came down to, because even Latinos voted for Trump, was the fact that, she was a woman doing this. She was not nearly as bad as this guy is. I mean, she wasn't going to be a good president either, but she wasn't going to be trying to do all these power plays and stuff. No. That's specifically this Trump guy. And again, because nobody wanted a woman telling him what to do, it's Trump that got it over the clearly less bad option. Like, she wasn't perfect, but she was less bad. Now, me personally, I don't vote at all. Why don't I vote? Because I don't feel like throwing my hat in the ring to choose between a piece of shit and a bowl of piss. I don't. So it's like, Kamala wasn't good. Trump is even worse. I don't want to have to choose between either of them. But if I had to choose, it would have been Kamala, woman or not. But both of them are pieces of shit. It's just one of them is a worse piece of shit. And the only reason the worst piece of shit got elected is because nobody wanted a woman to be the other piece of shit that got elected. So, you know. But yeah, back to the article. My own personal view is I believe what he says, and he's going big time. He's shooting for Mars, and he's shooting to change so many things any way he can, she said. Katzen noted that Trump has boasted that he could get away with anything, even shooting someone on Fifth Avenue, and now that the Supreme Court has given him some immunity for his actions, and he has both houses of Congress in Republican control, he is ready to test out those limits. And also, you got to consider that Trump was about to go to actual jail. He's convicted of a lot of shit. He's a felon. He is trying to maintain his presidency too. I can't pronounce presidency. He is trying to maintain his presidency to keep himself from going to jail. That's another big thing. It's like, so yeah, he's boasting that he can get away with all this shit and that he can do all this shit. It's like, it's really just coming off as tyrannical. Uh, and again, that's why last time I was very enthusiastic about the TikTok ban and not so enthusiastic about Trump bringing it back, because that's just another instance of propaganda, this time aimed at, the early Gen Zers and the Gen Alpha, people who primarily use TikTok and primarily believe what things on TikTok have to talk about. So, it's like, when you open up TikTok, the first message you see is, thanks to Trump, TikTok is back. And so now we're getting propaganda. He's testing his power. He's trying to abolish the 2-term limit, which I'm not even gonna just tell you that. I'm gonna prove it. 2. Trying to find it here. Okay. This is ogles.house.gov, Congressman Andy Ogles. Representative Ogles proposes amending the 22nd Amendment to allow Trump to serve a third term. Washington, D.C., Congressman Andy Ogles introduced a House joint resolution to amend the Constitution of the United States to allow a president to be elected for up to no more than 3 terms. The language of the proposed amendment reads as follows: no person shall be elected to the office of president more than 3 times, nor be elected to any additional term after being elected to 2 consecutive terms. And no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. That's not English, but essentially what that means is that he wants 3 times. 3 times he wants to be the limit. They're upping it to 3 times. But how long until it gets up to 4, to 5, to 6? And yeah, this isn't Trump himself doing it, but Trump has not come out against this type of bill. Trump has not said it's unconstitutional. In fact, he's been in support of this. And Andy Ogles is a known Trump supporter. President Trump's decisive leadership stands in stark contrast to the chaos, suffering, and economic declines Americans have endured over the past 4 years. He has proven himself to be the only figure in modern history capable of reversing our nation's decay and restoring America to greatness, and he must be given the time necessary to accomplish that goal. To that end, I am proposing an amendment to the Constitution to revise limitations imposed by the 22nd Amendment on presidential terms. This amendment would allow President Trump to serve 3 terms, ensuring that we can sustain the bold leadership our nation so desperately needs. And this article was posted on January 23rd, by the way. I forgot to say the date in the beginning. But yeah. So essentially, they want Trump to run a 3rd term, which is unconstitutional because we did in the past have presidents running term after term after term, and people got real tired of them because they were just not doing what they were supposed to do. They were enjoying their power a little too much. And so that's why that is why we instituted that 2-term limit. If we allow Trump to serve a 3rd term, what's to say that if somebody else gets elected that we don't amend it now for 4 terms? So now it's 16 years instead of just 8 years, right? Or 5th terms or 6th terms. Before you know it, motherfuckers are just going to start proposing forever. Yeah, let's just have one president forever, because that's not going to cause anything. We definitely don't see that happening in Russia and North Korea. We definitely don't see that happening. See what I'm saying? So yeah, it's starting to get a little weird, starting to get a little red flaggy. I will link these articles in the description so you guys can review them yourselves, of course. But it's starting to get a little weird, starting to get a little red flaggy. But we're going to move on to some other news here. All right, so this is CBS News. Health Watch. Can cold weather actually make you sick? Health and safety dangers to know about this winter. By Sarah. What the fuck is with all these goddamn names? This is Moniuszko. I don't know how you pronounce that. Edited by Allison Elise Gualtierl. January 24th, 2025, 11 a.m. CBS. As millions of Americans cope with severe winter weather spread across the country. Oh, hold on, pop up. There we go. Experts say to watch out for health and safety dangers that go along with frigid temperatures and snow. One of the things we've been seeing in the last... Get away, pop-up. One of the things we've been seeing in the last couple of days is just a lot of falls. Dr. Steve Dorsey, Assistant Medical Director at the Cleveland Clinic Emergency Department, told CBS News, saying to watch out for icy sidewalks and be careful shoveling snow. There's clearly an association between the exertion of clearing snow and provoking chest pain or angina. The cold can also weaken our immune system, increasing the risk of contracting the colds, COVID, flu, and other illnesses around this time of year. Even people with normal, healthy lungs can experience cold-like symptoms like coughing or shortness of breath in cold weather. Dr. Chidinma Nwakanma of Penn Medicine recently told CBS News Philadelphia, The cold air, particularly cold, dry air, can cause your airways to constrict and can be irritable to your airways, which is why we recommend that if you are outside for these prolonged periods of time, you are covering your nose, you're covering your mouth, you're warming up the air that your lungs are taking in. In the process, also moisturizing it. There's a risk for anybody at these extreme temperatures because your body is doing everything it can to maintain its core temperature, Nwakanma said. So basically, because your body is working overtime, some areas of your body get a little weak. And when those areas of your body get weak, that's when cold, flu, COVID, hypothermia, that's when a lot of the diseases can kind of set in. So again, this article will be linked in the description, but just kind of be careful out there, folks. You know, it's very cold. We just had this Arctic blast. If you're on my side of the U.S., just kind of be careful. You know, it's unprecedented. It's unprecedentedly cold outside. And then finally, this is a BBC article. I spent 30 years searching for the secret to happiness. The answer isn't what I thought. By Fergal Keane, special correspondent. And this article was posted in, what's the date? Well, today is January 26th, and it says 8 hours ago, so I'm just going to assume it was January 26th today, earlier. Yeah, but whatever. In a powerful personal account, Fergal Keane reflects on living with PTSD, depression, and his search for balance in life. What he has discovered along the way is a deeper study of happiness that can apply to those with serious mental health challenges, but also to those simply in need of a lift. Listen to Fergal read this story. I'm not Fergal, and I'm not going to play the audio clip because you're not going to be able to hear it. But there was a moment nearly 2 years ago when the change inside hit me with force. I was walking with a loved one on the eastern edge of Curragh Beach in Ardmore, County Waterford, a place of warm refuge since I was a child. We paused beside a river that flows into Ardmore Bay. I was listening to the different sounds the water made, the swift rush of the river, the surf crashing on the shoreline. Suddenly, there was the sound of air being displaced by dozens of wings. A flock of Brent geese came sweeping over the cliff, riding the wind towards the sky. I felt a lightness inside and such gratitude that I laughed out. Oh, so this is how it feels, I thought. To borrow and turn around the words of the novelist Milan Kundera, I felt a wonderful lightness of being. The moment came back to me this week. I swear. I'm sorry. A detour, but why do all the smart people have to quote these people with these fucking unpronounceable goddamn names? I mean, for God's sakes, even in the last podcast, I mean, it's like, do you know how difficult it is to fucking read this shit back to back? Like, just fucking speak normally. Oh, to quote the words of the great novelist Tchaikovsky. Just come on. Come on. You know how difficult it is to read this shit? It's difficult to read the names of people who are still alive, and now you want me to read the names of people who are dead? Who I can't pronounce because they're dead and their names stopped being used like 50 fucking years ago? I don't know if this is the case with this author, but I'm just saying, you know? It's like, just come on. Come on with that. Come on with that. Anyways, the moment came back to me this week. I was thinking about the Blue Monday phenomenon, the January day that is said to be the saddest of the year. As anyone who knows clinical depression or PTSD will tell you, there are no specific days of the year for sadness. It can be the brightest day in the loveliest place, and you still will feel like your mind is trapped in permafrost. But Blue Monday did prompt me to reflect on happiness. What is it anyway? What does it mean in my life? So yeah, we're gonna keep going here. Not long before that day of the beautiful geese, I had come out of an emotional breakdown. It was March 2023, and I felt as if I had gone 12 rounds with a heavyweight prize fighter. But the person I'd fought was myself, as I had done for decades. I had experienced several hospitalizations over the decades, stretching back to the early 90s. I fought a relentless battle with shame, fear, anger, denial, all these things that are the opposite of happy. There were gray, terrifying days, every branch bare, even in deep summer, and nights waking drenched in sweat, Waking to obsessive rumination, bad dreams leaking into the dawn. Add in recovery from alcoholism at the end of the 90s, and I've done plenty of research into the dark nights of the soul. By the time of the 2023 breakdown, I had gone past the point of hoping for happiness. In those days, I would have settled for a little peace of mind. In 2019, I had stepped back from my job as the BBC's Africa editor due to my struggles with PTSD. 2 years later, I wrote a book on the subject and made a television documentary for the BBC, yet even after all that, I experienced another breakdown. And then it goes into the science of happiness. Yes. I'm trying to find where it mentions the actual secret to happiness, because some of these are just long, long preambles, because they have to get a word count. But essentially what he's saying is that medication didn't work, and none of the typical mental health crap worked. It kind of made it worse. The symptoms, And as somebody who's had depression and has been on medication before, not, again, no PTSD, but as somebody who has had a mental health struggle and has been on medication before, I can tell you that shit does not work for everybody. You can tell somebody to go get help, go get put on medicine all you want, but at the end of the day, there's only maybe like a 50-50 chance that any of that shit's going to work. And then on top of that, it's a constant experiment with you having to go on medicine after medicine after medicine after medicine after medicine. And it's just, yeah, it's just too much. But essentially, what he realized was that even in getting the treatment that he was getting, that he was privileged, because there are millions of people waiting to access that treatment, which I can agree with. I don't think it works, but I will say that being able to get in and see a counselor and get on medication all those years ago, in comparison to someone who just could not find that help, couldn't even escape whatever they were going through to get that help, and was so deep in the darkness that they didn't even know if that help could do anything, that I'm very privileged. And he goes on to say that it's important to recognize that there are numerous social, economic, and cultural factors that influence our ability to feel happiness. And essentially, hold on, I'm going to find it. So essentially, I'm trying to find it. The secret to happiness is no secret. Here it is. In my experience, the secret to happiness is that there is no secret. It's out there in plain sight all around us waiting to be found. But it is not ever present. It is not the natural everyday condition of humanity, no more than depression or rage are. As the American psychotherapist Whitney Goodman, author of Toxic Positivity, How to Embrace Every Emotion in a Happy Obsessed World, puts it, anyone that is fixated on making you feel happy all the time is selling you snake oil, in my opinion. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. Telling people that they just need to be happy to manifest different thoughts, I think it would have worked by now. And that's something that we have to kind of get over in our society, that, if you're depressed, just think positive thoughts. You can choose to think positive thoughts. If that really was the case, don't you think a bunch of people would have done that by now? And that would have been like a revolutionary discovery. It'd be all over the news. Oh, you're depressed, just think happy thoughts, says expert researcher. And we wouldn't be sitting here still dealing with this in 2025. That's because it's not just thinking happy thoughts that works. This is something that the Black community struggles with, especially when it comes to mental health. You do not control depression just by thinking happy thoughts. There is a complex, even if you don't take medicine, there's still things you have to do. It's not just something that you can just, pop, I'm sad, I'm depressed thinking about this and that. Let me think about some puppies and rainbows real fucking quick. You can't do that. You literally cannot do that. And this author brings up something that I even struggled with when it came to my mental health problems. For me, loneliness was the defining characteristic of my mental health problems. I went deep into myself and found nothing to love or admire. I shut the door. That was my problem too. And there is no think happy thoughts in the world that can fix that can make you feel whole again. The answer didn't arrive in a blinding flash of light. If I could pick one thing that made the greatest difference after I had been stabilized with treatment, it was and always will be work. Not the work that drove me to a near constant state of exhaustion as I chased scoops and prizes so vital to my insecure ego. Note to all who get their validation from work, the workaholic is the most accepted addict of all. In fact, he and she are celebrated. Why would you want to change when the bosses in society applaud you? Work is the great permissive addiction. The work I am talking about is very different. Nobody will tell you what a brave, talented person you are for doing the work of real happiness. But you will feel it in the reactions of people you love, the gratitude of waking up without a sense of dread, the awareness of beauty around you, and knowing you will keep your commitments and live as a person who doesn't talk about caring for people, but does their best to live that talk. One night in hospital in 2023, having been admitted with PTSD, I watched a documentary in which the American psychotherapist Phil Stutz spoke of three fundamental truths to be accepted by people struggling with mental health problems: that life can be full of pain, full of change, and that living with these things needs constant work. I was exhausted from suffering, but I was also willing to do whatever work I could do to find peace of mind. The happiness came later. And what did he do? A lot of simple stuff. He wrote poetry, he went for long walks, he meditated, he went to the movies, he started doing things he liked. He made more time for friendship, for love, for everything. Basically anything society tells you that you don't have time for, that you're like weird for making time to do. No. Make time for your hobbies. Make time for the people who love you. Make time for love. Make time for friendship. Make time for sentimentality. Make time for long walks in the park and on the beach. If you don't have time to even sit in your room and just breathe, then that's probably going to contribute to an issue. So essentially, what this article is saying is that the secret to happiness is constant work and also remembering that it's okay to embrace the little things. Now, I'll be linking all of these articles in the description. These are all great articles, and I think all of you should take the time to read them. And even though I had some complaints, that's not against the article itself. And another disclaimer is that all political jargon that I sort of threw out there is my opinion only. If you believe something different, I don't begrudge you, but it's my opinion. Any political stuff I say is my opinion. I don't expect you to share the same opinion. I don't begrudge you if you have a completely different opinion. If you think I'm some kind of liberal cuck or a chicken or whatever for not voting, then, that's fine for you to voice. Me, I'm going to keep living my life the way I want. It's my show. I'll do what I want. But yeah, the political stuff is my opinion only. So no need for me. Like, I'm not telling you to believe anything. But these is my show, my opinions. That's what you come here for. Now, let's transition into talking about these pickup artists. Our first topic for today. These alpha male types. The ones that tell you that you should treat a girl like you could leave at any moment. Never show any actual interest to a woman. Don't show feelings in general around a woman because you don't want to let her think that you're too comfortable. Always operate in the world of stereotypes, so that means that all of this type of women are this, all of this type of women are that. The only place to find women is in a bar when you're hitting on them, and if you don't successfully hit on many women, then you're ugly and don't deserve it. You're also never supposed to make a woman feel secure. She has an abandonment wound or something like that. Yeah, you're never supposed to be the opposite of what she experienced in life, thus causing her to continue on a cycle of chasing people who don't care about her. You're never supposed to be the man and just like be like the security. No. You're never supposed to make a woman feel like she has you. And you're supposed to always make her feel like you could leave at any moment. You've got options. Always look out for. Now, this is a weird one I found on a channel. A weird tip. Apparently, you're supposed to always protect and look out for women outside of the club, but inside the club, they're on their own. And I heard someone say that even if they walk off with a drug dealer, they're just on their own. So it's like, okay, so now we're just letting women get into obvious danger when men are supposed to be the protectors and providers. Okay. And then we wonder why women on these dating sites and on social media have such high standards for us. It's like it's literally a response to this type of shit. And there's a video by this YouTuber Michael Sartan that I heavily disagree with that I'm going to link in the description. And it talks about basically this guy. He's one of those alpha male pickup artist types. He doesn't like to say he is, but he is. He's one of those people that's like, well, I wouldn't call myself this, but he is. He clearly is. If you hear his tips, if you see who he talks to and look into the research that, he is. And he's selling a fucking course to you, which all of these pickup artists always fucking do, is sell some kind of fucking course to you. So I'm going to link that video in the description and make sure that you guys are able to see that. But basically, he tells this story of the time that he hit on a girl and she turned him down, and that girl proceeded to overdose on something. And basically, long story short, he went and saved her and, took her to the hospital because she was like throwing up and shitting on herself and all that stuff. And, she's in the hospital. She wakes up and she sees him. She's not super happy, which nobody would be after being that embarrassed and then seeing the guy you rejected be the one who saved you. But he basically says that he regrets that because she wasn't happy to see him. He regrets saving a human life because he wasn't able to get that number. This is the type of thing that they're talking about. And then he goes on to say the game exists even if you don't want to play it. So God forbid you want to be genuine and make sure that this person is okay, whether they rejected you or not. God forbid you want to cross the boundaries of this persona mask bullshit and actually get down to the root of the human experience, saving another human's life and then making sure that they're okay. No, it's all about the game. If I didn't get the pussy, I don't care if you live or die. That's essentially what what he's telling people. And this is all taking advantage of vulnerable men who might not necessarily have the height that women want, might not necessarily have the weight that women want, might not look a certain way. Hell, sometimes I look in the mirror and feel like that. It takes advantage of people like that. And it's all to line their own disgusting pockets. It's all a money game. That's what it is. They're telling you this so you can feel insecure, so they can sell you a fucking course that doesn't work. Because if you actually hang out around females, not only will they tell you that they see through this bullshit, but they'll tell you that it straight up makes men look insecure. Like, it serves the opposite effect. Because it causes men to act creepier. Because now it's like you're a predator stalking your prey, and if your prey makes a wrong move, then you're out of there. You're no better than a cat stalking a mouse at that point. And then a lot of this stuff emphasizes traditional and outdated values, like a woman's place is in the kitchen, she needs to submit to you, and all this stuff. And like, yeah, there's some submission in relationships, but that's submission on both ends. Even if you're in a quote unquote traditional relationship, the man still has to submit to the woman in some respect. The man can't just go out and do anything he wants to do while the woman just sits there and cooks and cleans and does. No, he has to come home to only her. And the woman, if she wants to do that, I mean, she still has to, the same thing. Like, submission can even come down to faithfulness. Y'all have a healthy fear of losing each other. That's good. That's good. But the only thing that these guys pump out are those fedora people who think because they held a door open for a woman that they deserve the world. Really ups men's creep factor, if you know what I mean. And if the game is to get a long-term relationship, most women will tell you that this shit barely gets you hookups. And it really only gets you hookups with the craziest of people. And like I said before, having female friends is the key. You gotta learn to be around females. How they think, how they act, how they look. Because some things females do, a lot of men still don't have an explanation for. And it's like hanging around female friends, they start to explain it. They start to let you in on those things that you didn't even know were happening. For example, I have a friend, and recently I had left a pretty bad friend group, and this is a female friend, and I thought that because of certain stories she told, that she had told stories of being annoyed with people who acted like me. So I thought, there's no way this person could actually want to be my friend. So I backed away from her. I stopped texting her. I stopped reaching out. I stopped visiting her. because I thought, okay, if she's telling me stories about how she did this person and I act somewhat like that, then there's no way that she's gonna deal with me for long. But there was something that I was missing, and that's that it's all about the vibes when it comes to females and women. They'll tell you that it's all about the vibes. It is all about the vibes. What? Because two men can basically be doing the same thing, but one does it with the intention of this, while the other one is just like that. You know, if I'm sitting there cracking jokes all the time and laughing, and you genuinely find it funny, while somebody else who tries to mimic the bit, you don't find them funny, it's because that other person trying to mimic the bit has a bad vibe. They're up to something. They've got something to hide. And that's something that this pickup artist bullshit does not tell you. Anytime you have something to hide, your creep factor is upped. Now, granted, we all have our dark secrets, but if you're like, as soon as you meet somebody, you're already hiding intentions about them, they get creeped the fuck out. They do. They just do. So, you got you got to have female friends. That is really the foolproof way of learning how to be around women so that you can attract a genuine relationship to yourself, is having female friends. If you don't have female friends, if you don't have a good mother in your life, then you need to find some kind of positive female influence men, because that's the only way. And the reverse is true too. Women, the only way to get to know the male mind is truly to have male friends. It's like you can't just go based off of assumptions from your girlfriends who have been in miserable relationships themselves with people who arguably aren't good people, nonetheless good partners. You need to have male friends so you can figure out how they think. It's like the minute we start normalizing male and female friendships, that will, funnily enough, increase relationships, because once we get to understand how the opposite gender thinks, then yeah. And I'm not excluding the they, them, the other types of pronouns. I mean, is this just in general? Try to have, from whatever gender you're attracted to, whatever one of the 100 genders you're attracted to, try to fucking befriend somebody of that gender that you're attracted to and learn how they think. So yeah, the best way to learn how to get into a relationship with the opposite sex, or even with the same sex, is to have friends with whatever gender you're attracted to, because you learn everything. And see, you just do, and there's a lot that you learn. But I want to segue into this article that I found by the Guardian. I think it's a really good article, and I think that I am going to link this in the description as well. But 50 years of pickup artists. Why is the toxic skill still so in demand? By the Guardian. This was okay. Pop up. Get out of my screen. This is posted by Siren Kale, 5th of November 2019. Ooh, Guy Fawkes. It's the 5th of November, because I'm on fire. Gunpowder treason. Anyways. Um, so yeah, 2019, 5 years ago, I think it's still relevant. But anyways, in an upmarket bar near Oxford Circus in London, I am watching two men hit on women with all the desperation of a doomed cavalry charge. Ooh, this is going to be good. But without the heroism. Mike and Raj, not their real names, circle the bar, scanning for women, drinks held at an awkward right angle to their chests. When they identify a target, they approach. The women stiffen, their smiles tightening. They swirl drinks with straws and chit-chat politely before mentioning boyfriends, real or imagined. The men retreat, regroup, identify fresh women, advance, engage, retreat, on and on it goes. I'm standing with the man coordinating this operation, the British pickup artist, Johnny Castle, as he watches as Mike and Raj, his students, run drills. Tonight is the culmination of Castle's intensive, day-long, impactful connection workshop. For £700, this is in London, Castle promises to help men master the art of attracting the women you truly want. But watching as Mike and Raj hit on women indiscriminately, it looks as if any women will do. It has been a long and disturbing day. Arriving at the venue, a 4-star Mayfair hotel that morning, I had found Cassell, 31, in a black mood. A client had just dropped out. Tall and handsome with wolfish hair, Cassell switches between being charming and cold. He does not like being contradicted or mocked. At one point during the session, I joke about spreadsheets and GDPR violations. Cassell is visibly displeased. So, that's already right there not the sign of a good pickup artist. It's not the sign of somebody who typically picks up the right types of girls anyways, or the right types of women or females or they them people or whatever. Why? Because you can't take a joke? Really? You'll walk up to women and take their time up by hitting on them indiscriminately, teaching men to approach women with all the same game as the gas station approaches I used to see back in the hood. And then you don't have a sense of humor for when those women are like, fuck off. Or you don't have any female friends to be like, hey, dude, that's not cool. Or to even see one of those guys do it and realize how bad it looks. You know? It's like, and you can claim you have female friends. Like, some of these pickup artists do have quote unquote female friends, but they're nothing but guest women. And that is even worse. That's even worse than not having them at all. At least with not having them at all, you can make a claim to ignorance. But you have untapped wells of knowledge sitting right around you who can tell you this thing is not okay. Yeah, we don't like that. Nobody likes that. And they're just sitting there, yes, 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 because if they say no, you stop paying them. But anyway, back to the article. For the uninitiated, pickup artists, PUAs, are typically men, female artists are much rarer, who attempt to coax women into having erotic actions with them through a mixture of flattery, psychological manipulation, and coercion. The movement has a surprisingly long pedigree, dating back to Eric Weber's now almost 50-year-old manual, How to Pick Up Girls. 50 years old. This thing is 50 years old. That means it's outdated as fuck. None of the things he said. I bet you if I picked that up, I bet you if I bought that, I'm not going to waste my money on it, but I bet you if I did, it would fucking say some shit that's not even relevant now. It doesn't work. Today, this seems relatively sedate stuff. Weber writes, the most important tenet of a pickup is that it's mutual. Women are entitled to say no, plain and simple. Okay, that's not outdated, but I bet some other shit in there is. But the community really exploded into the public consciousness with the publication of Neil Strauss's 2005 international bestseller, The Game, which sold 2.5 million copies. It introduced a generation of men to the murky, underhand world of pickup artists and their nefarious tactics, such as negging, insulting a woman to undermine her confidence and make her feel as if she has to seek your approval, or peacocking, where you dress flamboyantly as a talking point to hit on women. I went to university 2 years after The Game was published and watched its influence spread like a virus through the men in my year. I don't think I went on a night out in 2007 without some drunk rugby player trying to neg me. What was once an underground community has grown into a seduction industry valued at $100 million. See, this is the problem. And this is the problem with dating apps. This is the problem with any app where connections are monetized. You're not going to get real tips on how to actually make genuine connections with people. This is the problem with any of this shit that's monetized. Its specific goal is to make more money by keeping you depending on them. It's like the medicine industry. If you cure the disease, you no longer can make money off of treating the symptoms. That's what this shit is. It's literally like they have to keep you depending on them. So they give you some good shit that sometimes works, but then they give you a bunch of bad tips and then make it feel like it's your fault so that you keep going back to them. When it's really just they're creepy in general, and you don't want to do any of this shit. You want to take everything they say, even if it's somewhat right, with a grain of salt, because having female friends can teach you better. It's like, I don't believe that men can learn how to talk to women from an echo chamber of men. I don't believe that women can talk to men from an echo chamber of women. And I don't believe any other gender can talk to any other gender in an echo chamber of the same gender. You need that diversity. You need that diversity. You need to siphon every bit of knowledge, and that comes with experience. That comes with years. That does not come with picking up one book, reading it, boom, and you got it. No, that's what they want to make you think you believe. So you buy their $1,000 fucking course thinking that it's the be all end all. But there's a million fucking be all end all. So is it really the be all end all? So yeah, it's like the base. Go back to the article. The basic premise of all seduction teaching and practice is that interactions between men and women are subject to certain underlying principles that, once understood, can be readily manipulated, explains Dr. Rachel O'Neill of Warwick University, the author of Seduction, Men, Masculinity, and Mediated Intimacy. This is an impoverished view of sex and relationships, in which intimacy is less something to be experienced for its own sake and more something to be achieved for other ends. With the advent of the internet, elements of the pickup artist community's ideology hardened into something darker. Here's the other side. It paved the way for another masculinized self-help formations to emerge, such as Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, says O'Neill. Peterson, a Canadian academic, published his best-selling self-help tome in 2018 and is a critic of feminism. It also connects with masculinist factions such as the incel movement, involuntary celibates characterized by an extreme hatred of women, and men's rights activists. This globalized network of pickup artists, men's rights activists, and incels all emerge out of the same primordial sludge. Yeah, these are people who hate women. The only female friends they actually have are paid, and they only view women as objects to plow and then move on from. These are not people who actually view women as people. And yeah, this is all cliche that I'm saying. Be yourself, have female friends, treat women as people, and you'll start to learn enough to where an actual relationship can pursue you. Yeah, it's cliche. The reason why people don't like those tips is because it takes longer. But sometimes the argument that you don't like hearing is the best argument. Sometimes the repeated argument that you really do not like hearing is the best argument. And I hate to be that guy, but it's the truth. A lot of times, you know, everybody wants to get out of it, right? Because it's hard work. It takes years being yourself to gain mastery over yourself to where you're just being yourself casually, because we live in a society where everything that's you has to be stomped down until you're in an acceptable form with only little hints of eccentricity popping out now and then. But that's the stuff you have to do. Having female friends. It takes a while to get female friends, especially if you're somebody who's starting out from a creepy place. But guess what? Once you do, not only do you learn how not to be a threat to women, not only do you learn that one does not simply pick up women, one is chosen by women, there is no picking up. And once you learn that um, all this shit is a money machine, then you start, all this shit is a money machine, and that the most valuable thing you can do is just exist as a person, treat everybody around you like a person. Once you learn that, you become unstoppable. And it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, how you are. You become much more attractive just on vibes alone. You could be balding. I'm telling you, the stuff I'm saying works. You could be balding with like chest hair, gray, fucking gut out to the fucking gut out to here. And as long as you follow these tips, you'll find somebody. That is how it works. I've seen it work. I'm telling you, I've seen it work for some of my friends. I've seen it work for me, and I've seen it work for many, many, many millions of other people who have just kind of realistically followed these things. You know, because what it does is it creates two extremes. This whole thing. It either creates somebody who places too much emphasis on women's opinions, which can't do that. That's why having female friends is important, because friends, you can say, fuck no, I'm arguing with you. I disagree with you. You know? So you don't want to place too much stock in it, but you don't want to place too little stock in the feedback of women. And it makes you somebody who's not solely dependent on that. And as a result, you'll attract it to you because it's not your whole fucking character. But speaking on female friends and friends in general, let's move on to talking about when you're starting to, how you actually choose your friends. And again, all articles seen here will be linked in the description. All articles used will be linked in the description, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it's like the best way to choose your friends is, you know, you gotta. Let me just tell you a story. So I had this friend a long time ago that I met in high school. This friend, or not high school, middle school. This friend was somebody who didn't. I mean, he exhibited certain red flags from the beginning, like he didn't shower. People thought he was disgusting. He would be. He's that type of nasty where he leaves like skin flakes. He left like skin flakes everywhere he went, and you know, I didn't really think anything of him. I interacted with him. I didn't want to be mean, so I interacted with him and befriended him. And we really started to get close in high school when we would all hang out. When we would hang out together, we'd get a group of nerds together, and we'd all hang out, play games on the computer, and things of that nature when we weren't supposed to. But who was going to stop us? Um, and yeah, we played some video games. We did a lot of different things together. And then after high school, our friendship kind of became a little distant, and he we were still exchanging memes back and forth. I still considered him a good friend of mine, but it became a little distant. I met all of them. I met my friend, the one friend, and then came a group with them, and all came a group with that person. One day, I get an invite to a video call on Messenger where it's a bunch of drama going on with somebody that I also knew from middle school who wasn't as close as me and the one friend were. We'll call him T, the guy I consider to be a good friend. We weren't as close, but I knew him from high school. He was a little on the weird side, but I didn't think anything of it. But he was having drama with a girlfriend of his or whatever, and I chimed in and gave some tips and whatnot. And that's when the group came together the first time. That's when I met all the other members of the group. I met one guy. We'll call him Tough Guy. Had a very dicey past, but he was a nerd. Very dicey ghetto past, but he was a nerd. I met the girls of the group, which is the the weird guy. We'll call him M. I met M's girlfriend K, and then I met a few other members like Tough Guy's girlfriend and stuff like that. But yeah, that's when the group really came together. Now, what really kind of should have been a red flag was the fact that the first meeting of this group was over some drama. I really should have then been like, you know what, these people are too much, let me back up. But I was lonely. I was going through a lot at that particular time, and I was desperately searching for some kind of friendship. So I entered into the group officially and became this sort of advice giver, this sort of guy who just, spoke the truth no matter what, and just kind of spoke truth, made sure that people understood. Um, but throughout that, I noticed some weird traits. First of all, the guy that I considered to be a good friend, T, was very manipulative, lied a lot, thought he was the bee's knees despite still living in his mother's house, and not even you have to hold a gun to his head to get him to shower. M was very unhinged. He was also a bit of a simp, often letting women around him treat him like shit and not doing anything about it. Tough Guy just had too much of a dicey past. I mean, for God's sakes, one time he got us involved in a shootout, and when we went to go pull his ass out of the fray, he had actually gotten shot. And then he had the nerve to run off to the point where me, M, and T had to go looking for him in M's car. And we had to go looking for him. He ended up in some dicey neighborhood at night, and we had to pep talk him to get him into the car because of a shootout that I mean, he didn't start the shootout. It was actually his girlfriend that started the shootout by getting involved with some types that she had no business getting with because Tough Guy's girlfriend was kind of dumb. Tough Guy's girlfriend was a little bit on the ditzy side. If you had to compare her to anybody, I'd say it'd be Peaches from that one movie with Anthony Anderson in it. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up. King's Ransom. Yes, she's literally Peaches from King's Ransom. That was literally how you could describe his girlfriend, Tough Guy's girlfriend. But yeah, this is the type of stuff we got into. I even had a fight with M one time because I told him that his girlfriend was manipulating him, and this was before they had 3 kids. Told him that his girlfriend was manipulating him, and she was doing other stuff behind the scenes, and she was. And I told him that I got bad vibes off her. I called her a manipulative fat bitch. I was very mean back in those days. But, and that's what led to the fight. And that was because, and it's not just me getting in their business, it's because we'd been in M's car multiple times because M drove. And whenever there'd be a problem with his girlfriend, he would drive erratically on the highway, causing us to almost die because he almost swerved recklessly into traffic. You know, he almost would swerve recklessly into traffic, and then he would also like get near the borders of the highway and start driving super fast, like we weren't gonna fucking fall off. And eventually, I just had enough of almost dying on the highway because this man got big sad. So yeah, I told him off, and I fought with him, and that was a thing. And all of these people in this group hated their own blackness. M was Caribbean. T was about as dark as M, and you could T was about as dark as M. But he would swear he was Canadian or something like that, like he was light skinned. And you know, even Tough Guy had moments where he wished he was Japanese because they were all weebs. So all of them, to some extent, wished they were Japanese. Me, I was about the only one in that group who actually liked their own blackness. And this is all kind of disjointed right now because I'm kind of remembering stuff as we go on. But just kind of take in this stuff, you know, and kind of understand. But uh, one thing that kind of was interesting about the group was that we all play video games, and that was the way you proved your worth in the group. So before, I wasn't that highly regarded in the group. I was just kind of, you know, treated in a cursory way. But as I got better at fighting games like Injustice and Mortal Kombat and things like that, that's when my worth increased within the group, and my words started having more gravity. And then as the years went on, being in that group, that's when my words, you know, started carrying more gravity too. But video games was the main thing that did it. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I did live with T at one point, and that was not a great experience. I did grow very depressed while living with him because I lived in his basement and didn't go out to see the sun. And I got so depressed that that was the first time I attempted sewer slide. Um, and I say all this to say, just to kind of bring stuff together, because when the story all comes together is when we all get a mutual friend. We'll call him C. He's the only white guy in the group, and he's kind of weird. He's kind of on the weird side, like the rest of them. He's basically like M, but a white version of M, without the girlfriend trouble. But essentially, this girl joins. This black girl, we'll call her L, who's just as nerdy as we are. She joins the group because she's a friend of C. She's a childhood friend of C. And it's one of those situations where C and L had such cringy interactions, with C kind of almost following after L, like clinging to her like a virus, that they hadn't really talked. There were other situations too, like C doing things to take advantage of L's kindness. But for the most part, it was just very cringy interactions that they had that she had just kind of distanced herself from them, from what I understand. And from the moment that this female joined the group, and this is the only female to join this group that's like single, that's not attached to somebody, T, M, and C all tried to manipulate her, manipulate who she'd get with, manipulate where she'd go, T, the guy who doesn't wash himself and the guy who leaves skin flakes everywhere, thought he was going to try to attract this black girl. And mind you, she was good looking. She was really good looking. But, he thought he was going to try to attract her just to break her heart and do a whole bunch of other stuff. It was a whole situation. But they also tried to manipulate me into feeling the same way by telling me a bunch of weird, untrue stories about her. And T did have a weird attraction to her because even later after I left the group, he admitted that he had some kind of weird attraction to her. But what happened that caused me to leave, and the reason I mentioned living with him and growing depressed, was one night we were sitting on video call. And T had gotten L a gift because he was trying to do that weird thing. And what ended up happening was when L realized that T didn't buy it with his own money, because I don't know if I mentioned this already, but T relied on his grandmother and his mother to take care of all of his expenses. He did not have any money of his own. He'd never even worked a day in his life. He was one of those people. He was bored. He was a neckbeard. If it weren't for me dragging him outside, he wouldn't have seen the sun either. And he claimed that I go outside, I walk, I'm not on the video game all day, but when you look at him, you would definitely think different. But yeah, no, he would then, and again, this plays into the manipulation thing I was talking about. So just keep those things in mind. But yeah, when she found out that T didn't buy the gift with his own money, because he got a gift for L, when he found out that it basically wasn't his, she got a little put off, because why are you buying me a gift with your grandmother's money? Why would you buy any girl a gift with money that's not yours? And so she grilled him about that for a while, jokingly, because we were all friends at this point. And I would find out later that she was attracted to nobody in that group. So, but yeah, he kind of got defensive about that. And then, I was laughing along, and he decided, oh, you can't talk. He decided to come at me. Oh, you can't talk, man. Remember the suicide attempt in the basement? And, I laughed it off. We all ended the call like normal. But what ended up happening was this situation where I was kind of stuck in a crossroads because I didn't feel right after that call. Even after all we'd been through as a group, I didn't feel right after that call. I put up with so much from all of them. But I didn't feel right after that call. That call was the last straw. It was. Because now my mental health struggles weren't even being respected at this point. My boundaries had already been broken with all the almost dying crap, the drama, the shootouts, and there's more drama here that I didn't even mention because we simply don't have time. Way more drama. The fact that the group started off with drama, I put up with. The fact that I was really the only voice of reason. T would refuse to say anything, even though he would often think the same things I thought. M was crazy, and Tough Guy was, kind of drifting in and out of doing crazy shit all the time. But yeah, it's I finally had just had enough. Because it's one thing to make fun of. We made fun of each other all the time. It's one thing to do that, but it's another thing to take somebody's very, very, very private mental health struggle and blast it to somebody who had just joined the group. Just because you wanted a gotcha. Something to make me look bad. It was then that I decided that I'd had enough. And so I left the group the next day. Middle of the day, I was on a walk and I decided to send that text. And, I'm not going to read it off, but basically it's saying, it essentially said, I've watched you manipulate, push people away. I've watched all that, and I'm done being complacent with it. I'm out of the group. And, the reason I would even attract somebody like that in my life in the first place, you're probably wondering, is because of the phase I was going through at that time. I was lonely, and I was desperate for any type of friendship, anything. I would have taken anything And as a result, I found my anything. And boy, howdy did I get it. But essentially, I say all this to say that choosing your friends, the best way for you to learn how to choose your friends is to basically decide that you'd rather be alone than deal with horrid people. Once I decided that I'd rather be alone than deal with people like that, that's when I actually was brought the right people. I have great friends right now. I'm in a great situation. But once I decided that I'd rather be alone than deal with people like that, that showed that I truly did not want people like that. And so the good Lord responded in kind and actually brought me some good people. That's how you choose your friend. And also pay attention, just pay attention to actions. A lot of people's, like, there were points during that friendship with T and the group that he showed that he did not respect me. He showed that he did not respect me as much as I respected him. He showed that he did not reciprocate the friendship that I was giving him. And there were points, and I wasn't paying attention because I just wanted friends. I didn't care if they actually cared about me or not. And I should have paid attention to the signs. I should have paid attention to all the times we would dip out of contact. I should have paid attention to all the times he would manipulate me as well as everybody else. All the times he would just lie to me about small stuff. He just lied about small stuff. Like, he would lie fucking about if he had a certain game on Switch or not, just to make you mad. You know, but like, I should have paid attention to all that shit, but I didn't because I was lonely and desperate. You got to decide that you'd rather be alone than deal with people like that in order for you to be brought to the right people. And that's literally the biggest step you can take in choosing your friends. The rest is up to personal preference, but that is the biggest step you can take. But now we're going to close that segment, and I hope you all was able to understand. I know I was stuttering a lot, but I was kind of remembering things on the spot because the story happened a while ago, and the most recent update to it was a few months ago when I actually broke off the friendship. So I hope you all have bared with me throughout that entire segment. But now we're going on to a bit of a lighter hearted topic, polyamorous relationships. I did find a TikTok meme that was like, why do all polyamorous people look like that? And that just made me look back on my time in a polyamorous relationship. So I was in Job Corps, and at Job Corps, it was kind of like Job Corps was kind of like, for those of you who don't know, is a no man's game. It was basically a career training institute where you could get real trade certifications, but it was like a live-in career training institute. It was for people who were not sort of on the right track in life, and I was at that point because this was at the height of my depression and directionlessness. So I was at that point, and I joined Job Corps, and I meet this guy. We'll call him D. I meet this guy, and we hit it off. You know, he seems to really be nice, but and I'll go into that relationship at another point. I mean, it's not really important now. What's important is that we briefly talked during that relationship about opening up the relationship into a polyamorous relationship. And oh boy, we actually ended up in entering into a polyamorous relationship. It was the two of us, and then it was like 4 or 5 more people, so maybe 6 or 7 people in total in this. I guess they call it polycule. That's what we called it when we were together, but I guess that's a common term. But yeah. Oh, and you should have seen. You should have. You all would have been just awed at the amount of planning that went into this. I even had a contract. I even had a contract, a consent contract. Hold on, I'll pull it up because you have to understand the way I wanted this to work. I really did want this to work because it had been something I'd never done before. Up until that point, I'd only ever been in flings. I never really. So I thought, okay, a relationship with not just one people but many people. Sure, I can love many people at once. So I came up with this Google form called a friendly agreement. I'm just gonna read off some of the things. So Job Corps was not very fond of relationships. They didn't like PDA or nothing like that. But essentially, one of the questions was by one of the things was you must never disclose the contents of our quote unquote friendship before or after you leave the Job Corps campus. Now, I'm breaking the contract um, because the friendship is no longer, and this contract was for as long as we were in a polyamorous relationship. But yeah, that was kind of the nature of it. Let me see. All parties involved must consent to your addition before for your application to be accepted, meaning that you can still fill out the application and be rejected, just in case anybody else wanted to join. We had an option where they left social media and identifying information, and essentially it was basically a Job Corps appropriate way of trying to make it so that everybody consented. And it was 5 responses, which meant that there were about 5 more people in this relationship. Yeah. So there are about 5 more people in this relationship. And yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yep. Yeah, it was 5 people, I think. I mean, I don't know. In some versions of the story, I say it was 20 because I really don't remember. Um, but yeah, it was about 5 more people, and that was the contract I made to kind of pull it all together. And again, to me, who was insecure at the time, I was like, I didn't think there was anybody who could love me once. Nonetheless, 5 people who could love me at once. So it was kind of freeing in a way because it's like, okay, so I'm getting all these types of people. We're all in a relationship. We're all moving and grooving. We all have access to each other, and we're all hugging and doing all this stuff. And it felt freeing to know that I didn't have to try anymore. All I had to do was be myself around all these people. But some issues did start to crop up. Certain members, including myself, didn't feel valued due to the high volume of people. Communication issues, obviously, with that many people, close communication can't be done equally with everybody. A lot of people didn't feel good enough, including myself. And I ended up even losing my temper from having to be the mediator for a bunch of daddy issues, which I have my own fair share. But dealing with mine and then like 5 other people's was not something I was prepared to do. And then when I actually ended up breaking off the relationship, it was hurtful to everyone involved. It was like breaking up times 6. So it was extremely hurtful. And it's not something that each member was able to get over easily throughout our time at Job Corps. They're probably over it now. I haven't really talked to them since this, but I am telling the story because I thought it was something interesting and. And I did have a couple articles here about why people get into polyamorous relationships. I am only going to read one, dude, for the sake of time, and I'm only going to read a little bit into it. This is Psychology Today: 8 reasons people may pursue polyamorous relationships. And polyamorous refers to having consensual, romantic, and sexual relationships with multiple others. So, skipping past the what is polyamory because we already know this. You know the segment if you saw the thumbnail. Uh, So, the motivations for polyamory were organized based on thematic analysis into 6 themes: autonomy, to be able to make one's own relational / sexual decisions; beliefs and value systems. This was not religious at all, this was an experiment. Relationality, motives involving the formation and maintenance of relationships. Polyamory is a healthy way to develop a sense of belonging. Sexuality, exploring sexual identities and satisfying one's sexual needs. Growth and expansion, and so on and so forth. The motivations for polyamory is fulfilling the needs unmet in monogamous relationships, personal growth, identity development, expression of political values. There's a lot of reasons for people to get into polyamorous relationships. This is actually not as strange as most people would think it is. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting story I needed to tell. I will tell you that one of the best parts about being in a polyamorous relationship with a guy you're attracted to and multiple women is the beach episodes. Woo! Swimsuit episode city. Oh my god, those were good times. Yeah, we went to the pool. I got to see all those swimsuits. Oh man, most guys wish to see the things that I've seen, to have access to as much as I've had access to. It feels like you're privy to some kind of secret government file when you're in that type of relationship. Honestly, but like I said, most guys wish to see what I've seen. You don't know joy until you're at a pool and you've got like five girls in swimsuits surrounding you like sharks. You don't know joy until you've experienced that. But moving on, that concludes today's show. If you like this show, or even if you didn't, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, etc., etc. Make sure to go follow me on Instagram at DapperDon1012. And if you want to be a part of next week's show, you can message me there or on Facebook at Don Piper as well. And make sure to tune in next Wednesday at 6:30 on the dot for an all-new What's Going On with me, your illustrious host, Dapper Don. You don't want to miss what I have in store. Peace.